series is with Devin Bondara from Nirvana Labs. I'm super stoked to have you here, sir. I am a paying subscriber, and we're running validator nodes on your cloud service. So it's super cool to have you here so that you can get to talk about everything you guys offer and how we can dig in a little bit to the infrastructure that you're providing to emerging Avalanche subnets. So welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for being a subscriber.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, yeah,
totally.
yeah. So I mean, subnets is been always been a huge interest to us. We before Nirvana Labs even started, we were a dev shop doing blockchain engineering and consulting, and we were working on a project that was engineered to be on a subnet. You know, Before the subnets, we even knew what a subnet was. Really, we were like, "Oh, this is what we want." So I've always been a big fan of subnets and the high TPS capabilities, how you can have permissionless and permissionless blockchains. It's really like, the Minecraft creator studio of blockchains when it comes down to it. Um, so yeah, we've loved subnets, and we always wanted to support them. So not only do we support Avalanche C Chain, but also subnets as a service. So Nirvana Labs, the main thing you can hit us up for is managed subnets or self-service subnets. Managed subnets being um, you just sign up with us, you get your node ID, you get a little dashboard, and you can always see your uptime, how many RPC requests are going through, and just run your subnet basically. Um, the self-service version is where you can actually SSH into the machine and manage your subnet yourself, as well as get Web3 support from us. So that's something you don't see from any of the other hyperscaler clouds, dedicated Web3 support. Um, that's just not part of like an AWS support engineers training repertoire. And that's fine. That's a Web 2 focused company, and we like to say that we're a Web 3 focused cloud company.
Yeah. So, I've been running validator since mainnet, and sometimes that means um, like AWS. Sometimes that means like I've run stuff on all nodes, um, and from personal experience, the most important thing is getting clear communication about uptime, um, and building reputation as a validator. So from my perspective, hearing that a smaller group of like basically a startup was able to provide that type of service at cheaper rates than AWS, I was like, that can't be true. That can't be true. That is like that's not a thing. So I gave it a go, and it really is a thing. So maybe you can talk about, like, from someone like me who's very skeptical of it, how do you guys provide such high uptime and availability, and cheaper rates than like Amazon?
Yeah, it comes down to it. It's just network engineering abilities and skills. Um, we took a lot of time, a year and a half, to architect the infrastructure and all of the layers of it. Having layers of redundancy, having network connections and that are actually resilient, and just having those dedicated resources available to you around the world. Yeah, it's expensive, but um, there's a certain amount of capex we had to put in to make it economically feasible. But the numbers, really work out in terms of in the favor of our customers, because they're paying 8 cents per gigabyte on outbound data transfer fees. That's the biggest cost for most AWS customers that are doing, lots of transactions or lots of data in and out of AWS. For us, it's 8 times less than that. It's 1 cent a gigabyte. And we're able to do that because we actually took the time to focus on interconnections between clouds, across regions, within metropolitan areas as well. But so it's mainly just DevOps expertise, network engineering expertise, putting thoughtful planning into how we're going to execute and maintain all of this infrastructure, making things as self-replicating, self-healing, and self-scaling as possible. What I tell everybody is our goal for 2023 is to have this thing so automated that half the team can be on vacation for half the year, and it's absolutely fine. So we want this thing to just keep scaling on its own, and I think we've been doing a pretty good job of maintaining uptime and performance so far.
Incredible. Do you really? So I'm gonna have you hammer me on this one. So why couldn't like AWS put like three crack engineers on this and outcompete Nirvana and drop their prices so hard?
Yeah, they definitely could drop their prices if they wanted to, but the thing is, they already have all of this infrastructure in place. Like I would call it legacy infrastructure, especially on the networking side. So they still have to maintain that, and they get the performance that they get out of those. Also, AWS is the most profitable part of Amazon as
Exactly.
a whole. So if they stop charging 8 cents per gigabyte, you might get 3-day delivery instead of 1-day delivery on Prime because it's not profitable for them to do so. It's a loss leader, and they're using AWS to offset a lot of those
Oh
costs.
yeah, that's why they can charge Whole Foods can charge such small, cheap prices and outcompete their competition.
Yeah. So we're just kind of doing it the other way.
And do you think do you think that's a long-term viable strategy? So like the way I'm imagining it is like AWS is a giant battleship that just can't take the time to turn really quickly, but you guys are like a small motorboat that can just get to the same spot and just kind of much
Yeah,
more agile.
that's a really good analogy. Um, but yeah, they'll catch up eventually. They're changing stuff, and that's why we want to just keep improving, keep making things more scalable. As we get bigger, we start experiencing some of the benefits that a larger cloud would have, such as the bigger we get, the bigger volume discounts we receive. So right now, we actually don't receive as big as volume discounts as any of our competitors, but we still are able to maintain a higher profit margin, and that's because we don't pay for a lot of things that are like licensed and third-party tools. Everything is, for the most part, either proprietary or open source, so that we can scale really, really quickly. For example, like AWS for their hypervisor, they're paying a third-party company. We don't have that, so they pay per core, per region for that hypervisor license and for the support for that. Since we built ours out on our own, we don't have to pay those license fees for each core of compute that we have. There's other fees they have to pay for per gigabyte, per request, per um, basically there's unit costs built into most of these services through third party tools, and that's what we tried to avoid, and that's what it took us so long to launch this cloud. But now things are kind of on autopilot, and we're just focusing on growth and sales and marketing. um, but yeah, this is just the best experience most of our customers, if not all of our customers, have had running a subnet.
Yep.
Uh, we've had games running subnets for 6, 7 months now, and
Can you share which gaming companies?
yeah, I think the longest running one would probably be Portal Fantasy. Um, and we're working with some AAA gaming titles on getting on Avalanche as well.
Can you
Um,
share which was?
Not yet.
All right.
Uh, we will soon.
So
So we're putting
that
out
means
some
they're
case
fire.
studies, but we made some good relationships at GDC, and
Cool.
we'll be at the Avalanche Subnet or at the Avalanche Summit. This is the
In
Subnet
Barcelona?
Summit.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be co-sponsoring the after party there as well as the Wi-Fi. So get
Nice.
all the infrastructure. Um, so we'll be there supporting subnets heavily
Yeah,
in
great. Yeah, the
Barcelona.
intent of our small online subnet summit was to pump, the mainnet subnet, the mainnet summit next month.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited for that. I have not been to Barcelona, and I think there's going to be a lot of great companies there, great protocols, and I heard it's like the best. Obviously all the conferences say they're the best, but
Yeah,
I've heard a lot of people say this is almost the best one.
right on. Um, yeah, so let's dive in a little bit into Nirvana's stack and subnet offering. I remember when we first spoke, you mentioned like a two-sided marketplace.
Yeah,
You want to go into that? I'd love to hear more.
yeah, it's not out yet, but that's something that we've been working on and planning, testing. Basically, a subnet validator marketplace on our site. So if you're an enterprise customer of ours, and we've talked to a lot of the customers that are running subnets already, um, they all have interest in being listed in this validator marketplace, where basically anybody else that's not them can come and also launch a subnet validator node into somebody else's subnet. So let's say I'm Portal Fantasy and I don't want to run 7 to 50 nodes, depending on how scalable they get and how big they get. They can invite other users in their ecosystem to run these nodes themselves. I equate it to like running your own Minecraft server, kind of, or like your own game server, pretty much. So if I'm in South America, my latency sucks over here. I'm gonna, run my own Portal Fantasy subnet in South America myself, and like grow out a gaming community in South America. And we're just going to use these servers here, and I get paid for promoting that, basically.
Hmm.
So I think it's a win-win-win ecosystem there.
One of the things that interests me both as a builder and as a validator is the ability to access and validate these emerging subnets. In 2 hours, we're having Barack from vaults.io talk about the emerging sort of like geometry and the shape of all the subnets. Um, so like having a central source where I can go and bid, provide services to the emerging subnets is really like such a big moneymaker, moneymaker, and a great opportunity to help build infrastructure. So that
Yeah,
I'm stoked to see that come out.
yeah, and when you have like the 1 cent per gigabyte egress fees, like it's really a big potential to for staking, because the biggest cost when you're staking is those egress fees outside of like the 180 you pay per month. With, with our validator plans, we actually just include the price of egress in the price of the validator monthly plan, so there's like no overages.
Yeah, can you go into that a little bit? Why don't you expand on the egress fees?
Yeah, so egress fees, like we really only take those into account if you're going to be doing a lot of RPC services. But if you're just doing validation, our validation prices are just like built into what we think egress will be. And it's so cheap for us that there you really have to be using a lot of egress to like make it not profitable for us. So that's we're pretty fine with offering those prices, and we think we can even make them cheaper as we go. The more, I guess, network effect we establish, the better deals we can get on uh, fiber connections, and faster and cheaper we can get.
Yeah, that's great. For us at Landslide, we're doing a CosmWasm like IBC enabled subnet, right? And the early people who really understood what we were even talking about um, was Anchor, the RPC provider, and Chorus One, obviously another like they're not as much of an infrastructure provider, but all of the infra providers are like it's like a no brainer for them. Um, so like if to people who are trying to get and launch a subnet, talking to infrastructure providers is such a critical piece of this because you're basically recreating like you're basically recreating web infrastructure from the ground up. And so having like a partner like Nirvana is like it's a no brainer. Otherwise, you're going to have to deal with Google Cloud and AWS. And people on your board may say, "Well, you should have both." And I think that you can argue that point. But for us, um, the ongoing costs of paying our developers and like just set up all of the AWS and the Google Cloud, we can have them doing other things. Like we don't need to pay them and their hours to do what should be automated anyway.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
that's the biggest thing, like most of these startups that are launching subnets, and even like the bigger companies from Web 2 that are launching into subnets, they don't have, dedicated DevOps people that are just going to run these nodes all the time.
exactly.
They may have game devs, they may have Web3 devs, Solidity or full stack devs, but um, the extent of DevOps knowledge is mostly like AWS, ECS, and S3 buckets, etc. But you need a much deeper level of knowledge on when it comes to like running a bare metal cloud, running network engineering, connections between regions, DNS, load balancing, Kubernetes is involved. So like there's a lot of different parts of the stack where things can go wrong. So yeah, it is good to have multiple options, but I think we built our infrastructure in a way that is really redundant, where we've had customers that are running on 5, 6 different providers, and they're doing like 10 billion requests per month, and they've
What kind of customer does that?
indexers, like customers that are indexing a lot of data on chain. Um,
So like a block explorer, who's indexing that type of stuff?
yeah, like Gold Sky, for example.
I'm unfamiliar with them.
It's like a live crypto indexing data API. Um, but yeah, they're on multiple chains, and basically they were using many different providers, and they had to do that because they didn't see the level of uptime that they needed in terms of SLA. So
Huh.
they had to use, just pay for the same providers, but at the end of the day all these same providers were running on AWS for the most part, so you're just paying for AWS like 3 4 times over. They've since canceled, all of the other node plans that they had on this specific chain, and they're seeing better uptimes than they've ever had before. Um, and that's because of our, resiliency and redundancy in our cloud. Um, I think it's really underrated, but so far people have just been. I've been telling people, just try it out for yourself, see how it goes, and you'll really like it, and then we can come back and talk about discounts if you do like a longer term.
Right on.
Um, but yeah, I think the uptime is the biggest thing. Uptime, if you don't have that, none of the other stuff
None of
matters.
it matters at all.
If you're not, if you can be a super fast, super performant, have the best customer service, but if your nodes are not up, no one cares.
Do you want to show us a screen share of your interfaces?
Um, I don't have a dashboard like that's ready and prepped. Um, Mine's kind of all over the place. It's got a bunch of like test stuff on it.
Right on.
Um, but I definitely encourage everybody to go sign up. It's super simple. You can create a node for free if you're just wanting an RPC node for Avalanche.
Right
If you
on.
want to create a subnet right now, you have to contact us and we'll set it up manually and you'll see it in the dashboard. But really soon, it's just going to be all self-service, where you go to Avalanche and you pick either I want to do Fuji or mainnet, or I want to launch a subnet. And then you can go ahead and name your subnet and upload a Genesis file and just launch a subnet node. Super easy.
Awesome. We're going to be just as another plug. So Landslide open sourced its first software package yesterday. So that's Landslide Core. And that kind of kicks off the initial parts of our incentivized testnet. So now users can see what we're actually talking about, rather than just attending Twitter Spaces and reading announcements. But this is so everything's you can audit it now. It's the first step. So um, our we're obviously going to be setting up a ton of our subnet infrastructure with Nirvana. So we should figure out a way to incentivize users, um, both in Landslide and in Nirvana. So happy to figure that out.
Yeah, yeah, we can set up some partner program and get things going.
Yeah.
We're working with more and more blockchains as we go. So not just subnets, but many different chains. We want to be at the point where we're a holistic Web3 cloud and developer toolkit. So we also do decentralized storage. We also have machine learning models as a service. And we have a lot more things coming down the line.
And dive into that rabbit hole a bit. So what are the other chains, and what are the machine learning models as a service?
Yeah, we're about to launch like Arbitrum and Sui, looking into Aptos, but Arbitrum and Sui right now are the main ones that we're working on. And then Binance Smart Chain. Um, we've done some work on Solana, but we're kind of waiting till the FireDancer client comes out onto mainnet before we support Solana. And then on the decentralized storage side, IPFS, and then tableland.xyz, which is basically like a layer on top of IPFS that makes it a SQL database pretty much.
Interesting.
And this is a awesome application for gaming, basically gaming assets you can store on tableland.xyz. That's what it was designed for. And we actually made a project on Avalanche subnets and tableland.xyz. It's called mystandard.io. It's still in testnet and beta, but they just finished another raise, and that was one of the first projects that we architected to go on a subnet. So it's pretty cool. It's like a decentralized LinkedIn.
So my standard is like a decentralized LinkedIn.
Yeah. Yeah. And then what was the other thing? The decentralized storage we just went over, and machine learning models as a service. We think that adding ML and AI, it's a big buzzword this year, but we've been working on it for like a year and a half. The first model we put out, and it's a free beta right now, is sentiment analyzer. So you can basically type in the name of any token or any NFT name, project, and you can get all of the relevant news data about that in a JSON format with all the news article links and titles, as well as the sentiment on each article in regards to cryptocurrency and NFTs. So if you type in, Bored Ape Yacht Club, you can see that there's like a, 0.3% positive sentiment, so 30% positive sentiment, and there's all these news articles about it. And basically, we're just running sentiment analyzers on all of the articles, the titles, the actual paragraphs and bodies of those articles. And we're just it's learning, getting smarter and smarter, and getting better at identifying sentiment as we go and more people use it. We also have a wallet profiler AI model. Basically, it allows us to, in real time, identify what kind of wallet this is or what kind of transaction this will be. And it's really basic right now. Like a lot of wallets are just unlabeled, but it's a neural net, and it's constantly evolving. And all of this stuff we run on our own infrastructure. Unlike Chat GPT, which uses Azure and a bunch of Azure tools, we use only TensorFlow, which is open source, and we use a TensorFlow optimized OS, and we use Ampere, which is a CPU company. Ampere A1 chips in particular. We're pretty open about what we use for our machine learning. The reason being is CPU-based machine learning is way more scalable and linearly scalable than GPU-based machine learning.
Which is hilarious because Elon just bought 10,000 GPUs for his
Yeah.
own
Yeah,
product.
so for example, like Lambda Cloud, which is like a GPU as a service or ML as a service kind of cloud, they charge like $4 to $8 for GPUs per hour. We charge 2 to 5 cents per core per hour, so not really even comparable.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, what our background with we initiated a trading algorithm based on sentiment analysis for like a particular crypto a couple years ago, and it was hard for us to monetize it. How do you think these ML algorithms that you've built? How do you imagine them being used? Oh, I think we lost your audio temporarily.
Oh, I'm
There we
sorry,
go.
I accidentally muted myself. So at first we are just gonna, offer it as an API as a service.
Hmm.
Um, right now we have a few people testing it out, like Aviscan,
Mm,
Rome Blockchain Terminal.
yeah,
So those are ideal clients for us when it comes to sentiment analyzer or any sort of like real-time ML models as a service because those trading apps or trading analytics apps are like the best case for this stuff. We initially wanted to like build one out ourselves as an example, but that's a lot of work, and we'd much rather partner with successful companies in this space that already have a product, and our APIs and services can help make those products better, bring a better user experience to dApps as a whole in the industry, just through the use of these APIs and ML models as a service. Essentially, eventually, we're going to allow people to upload their own ML models. So you also own all the data that these ML models produce. So, like, if you hit the API and you ingest all this data into your database, that's your post ML process data that you have for yourself versus like if you're using another service, you don't necessarily own all the data that you're running research on. Um, and then, if you're uploading your own models, we want to make sure that you like still own that intellectual property, and we can't see that stuff. So that's what we're working on that side, just maintaining privacy. And that's a huge, huge, thing for us. That's why we spent 4 or 5 months, building our own logging stack that's completely in house versus like using Datadog or Splunk. Because if our clients ask, like, let's say they want us to turn off the logs completely, we can do that, and that's not super trivial for us to do because we built it that way to if we don't want to see things at all, we can't.
right on. That's a, I suppose that's a ZK proof. Um, Maybe you can go into a little bit about my standard. You kind of breezed through that. I was curious to learn a
Yeah.
little bit more.
Yeah, that was a project before we started Nirvana Labs. We were a consulting and engineering studio called Aegis Studio. And my standard was one of our biggest projects, and I'm like still an evangelist to this day because I thought it was a super cool project when I heard about it. And basically, like the setup right now with LinkedIn is if you're a recruiter, you pay your LinkedIn a fee to access the platform. If you're a data broker, you pay LinkedIn a fee to access data about recruiters and customers or candidates. If you're a candidate and if you want to get good exposure, you're paying LinkedIn for, a premium subscription fee as well. So all three areas, LinkedIn's making money and everybody's paying LinkedIn for you basically giving that LinkedIn your data. So this turns it on its head where if I'm a candidate and I have all of this personal information that's valuable to not just companies that are trying to hire me, but companies in general, data brokers, etc. They want to buy my data. LinkedIn's selling it, and I'm getting nothing from it. Why don't I monetize myself directly and sell data to the data brokers directly, sell my data to recruiters directly? So let's say I sign up, I put my resume, my job history on there. It gets encrypted into decentralized storage into a bucket using Tableland and ThreadDB, and it's encrypted using your own private key. So you're the only person that can unencrypt it by signing a transaction. And we used Web3 Auth and Taurus Wallet, I think, to do this so that it was really seamless and simple. You can actually log in with LinkedIn if you want, and LinkedIn is custodying your private key. I don't recommend it, but and then you can export your private key into a wallet and go the more self-custodied route. So we made it as custodied or self-custodied as you want it. Um, and then if I'm a recruiter, I basically buy these like my standard tokens and perform a search. Let's say I want to find a senior JavaScript engineer in San Francisco. That's what I type in. It'd say, there's 400 people that matched. It's going to cost you, X amount of MyB tokens or my standard tokens. Um, and that would go in escrow if you agree to that. And as soon as it goes in escrow, all the candidates that match that with essentially with a zero knowledge proof would get notifications and say, hey, Intel would like to see your resume and your job history, yes or no. If I say yes, I get paid, 10 tokens. And that makes it a more direct transactional process versus like you don't even know where your data is going. At least you know where your data is going now and you're getting compensated for it.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the eternal like, the holy grail of data monetization.
Yeah, I thought it was super cool. I mean, we had to work a while to make it really scalable. Like when we first designed it, it was like $1 per transaction using Chainlink oracles. And
Yeah.
that's when we were like, we need to use subnets for this.
Yep. Yeah, I'm curious to see how that will work. I designed a system like that didn't get off the ground many years ago, but everyone's kind of trying to do the decentralized LinkedIn. Um, I'm not sure that I'm not sure how the token will actually fit in. I get why it's there, but like in the current market, I would opt to just take stablecoin rather than the my standard token. But I think it's a brilliant idea.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's basically so that data brokers can buy and sell
Right.
that data, the PII. So let's say I'm or also if I'm another company and I want to verify that you, Nathan, worked at Intel in the past, I can go to
Right.
Intel and be like, verify Nathan. And then they do, and they get paid like 5 tokens out of the 20 tokens that you would get paid or something like that.
Right.
Um, there's all those economics kind of built in. They want to have basically every company is now managing like a data silo that's actually earning them money on their employees that they would otherwise just like have sitting there anyways.
Yeah.
So super cool. I'm super bullish on that stuff, man.
Yeah.
I think having real life use cases that are deeper than just like getting access to a digital item um, is is the way that this is going to move forward. Like gaming is why is one of the biggest things that is going to push subnets forward, if not the biggest thing. Adopting subnets into games where like every kill or every mission you're doing is an on-chain activity is potentially going to change the industry, I think.
I buy that argument. I'm just not sure how much money it's worth, or it's hard for me to value it. I'm very skeptical of it, even though I'm obviously like invested in it. I find it hard to believe that that the NFTs of those particular events are really, I know people want to own them, but it's hard for me to value them. It's hard
Yeah.
for me to get like an understanding of how that's gonna work. Um,
How I see it is like, like you get so much XP in a match, and that XP can go towards, buying actual items in the game, and those could be NFTs. But I'm not a game designer. Where I come in is I make the cost of doing things on chain so much cheaper that you actually have the creative freedom and flexibility to make things on chain as much as you want
yeah,
or as little as you want. And you don't have that cost constraint anymore that we've had for a long time.
Right on. Yeah, I think that's great. Um, I'm obviously bullish on gaming infrastructure and gaming subnets. I think it will drive up demand for validators. I'm just trying to understand where those pieces fit into the regulatory environment, like especially in the U.S., and how to actually value it as like both a user and as an investor. So I'm kind of stuck in that.
Yeah. We'll see how it pans out, it might be rocky, but, I'm just trying to, have play a first person shooter on chain. That's
That's
all
right.
I really want.
Yeah, I think that's a worthwhile game. It's a great experiment. I mean, and plus, like, over the next year, I mean, the new Unreal Engine animation, like for metahumans, is like the way that humans are rendered is sick. I mean, it's unbelievable. So we're gonna see some wild games. I mean, Godzilla is coming out with um, that first person shooter.
Yeah.
That's going to be amazing.
Yep.
Um,
It will.
yeah,
It'll be
I mean,
very fast too.
I've been in the old, like I've been in a different, living in a different hole, right? I've been in the Nintendo hole, and most of my life, I've never even owned a PlayStation. So this will probably make me go out and get one, just to
Nice.
see what that looks like.
Sweet. Yeah,
Um,
have you played Portal Fantasy yet?
no, never.
Oh, you should have played it at GDC. It's kinda like MapleStory when it
Huh?
comes to, like, the art direction. It's
What?
really interesting.
Yeah, this is portalfantasy.io, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, let me give him a shout out here. Let me.
Yeah, I played a lot of games at GDC. There was the Stardust event,
Hmm.
which was all just games running on Avalanche subnets or interested in running on Avalanche subnets, and there were so many just cool games out there that had all of their own artistic assets, all of their own, worlds, and you could tell, like, none of this stuff was, like, cookie cutter off the Unreal Marketplace or something. Like, they built this all custom. So it's really nice to see a lot of effort being gone into this. Yeah.
I'm just gonna do a brief overview here. Yeah, so it looks like a 2D old school Zelda game
Yeah.
plus Pokemon.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Fascinating. And so all of these, like the monsters are all NFTs.
I think so. And it's all web based. Like, they were running this on a MacBook Pro, and I saw them at GDC.
Huh. Amazing.
Yeah.
Very cool. What were some of the other games that are running on your infrastructure?
Um, that's the main one I can talk about right
Right on.
now. We've been talking to Gree as well.
Oh yeah,
Gree,
this is an obvious. That's a no-brainer for people who don't know Gree. Why don't you give a brief introduction?
yeah, Gree is like a huge gaming media conglomerate in Japan. And they have, they work with Sega and a bunch of the other big
Yeah,
gaming brands out there.
yeah. Gree is huge. They raised 150 million.
Yeah, so they've been slowly but steadily working their way into Web3. Right now, they're just running validators, and they'll be getting in more into Web3 by running their own subnet for Gree. They've had one in testnet, I believe, already, but they're working on game direction right now, I assume. So it's good, and that's why it's taking a while when it comes to onboarding games, because the game direction takes the longest, and like the game development, um, and then actually testing it doesn't take nearly as long when it comes to like the infrastructure side of it. Like, it either works or it doesn't.
Right on. I want to find out. We got a bunch of followers here on Twitter, so I want to see if there are any questions. Just throw up a hand, and we'll get you on stage and ask a question to Devin at Nirvana. Um, We're coming up on the hour here. Do you want to have some conclusions, some closing thoughts where you think we're going to head in the next couple months?
Yeah, I mean, I'm super hyped for the Avalanche Summit. I think, Avalanche is becoming a real household name in terms of blockchain, and subnets are going to take us to mainstream blockchain adoption much faster because all of these Web2 conglomerates are pouring in to running app chains, and the TPS is there, the team is there, the people building on the chain are there. So everything's coming together, aligning, and I have big hopes for Avalanche.
Right on. Okay. Well, if there's no other questions, I think we'll just end it here, and we'll send people to your site, which is nirvanalabs.io, and hope to spin up some validators from some of the listeners.
Yeah, sweet. Hit us up. We're here.
Great. All
Thank
right.
you.
Thanks. We're going to end the Twitter space and then end the live stream.
Sweet.